Okay, welcome to this intro to Google SketchUp. In this first video, you will be learning how to get Google SketchUp for Schools opened on your Chromebook or computer and how to save that for quick access for future use, as well as showing you several tools that will help you be productive and efficient in the use of Google SketchUp for Schools. As you watch the video, I would encourage that you pause from time to time and then go and try some of these things on your Chromebook. So you see about it, you learn about it, then you go and do it. All right, to begin with, our first thing we need to do is we need to get Google SketchUp for Schools opened. And how do you do that? Well, the first thing you need to do is go into your login to Google. You want to use ClassLink. Please use ClassLink. If you don't, you may not have access to this app. Once you are all logged in, I just simply want you to be to a new Google tab. Just hit a plus up here, add a new tab. Now, we need to go find Google SketchUp for Schools. And to do that, you want to go to the 9 dots in the upper right-hand corner of your Chromebook. Click on that, and you just need to scroll down until you see the icon for Google SketchUp for Schools. And once you see that, go ahead and click, and that should open Google SketchUp for Schools on your Chromebook. This is a free version. There are other versions out there that have more options to it, but this will work well for what we're trying to do through our green architecture course. All right, you should come to a screen like this, and we just want to log in through our Google sign-in, which is basically using our school account. That's why it was so important to be hooked up through ClassLink first. You should see a screen like this, and we're going to go to sign in with Google. Let's click on that, and you should see a sign-in screen. You should see an option for your Google sign-in for your school account. Simply click on that, and that should begin setting up an account for you. Now, I've got some things that I've done already, but that should have me opened up in what we're doing. All right, once we get in there, the first thing we need to do is we want to set up a few things for sketching and drawing as we'll be using it. And to do so, we're going to start right up here with Create New. If you hit the little drop arrow under Create New, and what we're looking for is Simple Template Feet and Inches. Simple Template Feet and Inches. Click on that, and that should open you up to a screen where you will see the image of a looks like a man or a scout or something like that, just to help you see proportions. For what we're doing, this guy doesn't help us at all. So we can just click on that and hit the backspace button on your computer, and he's gone. All right, so we have just a plain screen to start working with. Now, what's strongly recommended for what we're doing is we want to be working in a 2D environment. Right now, we have a 3D environment. We have the y-axis, we have the x-axis, and we have what's called the z-axis. And we may get to this later, but for now, for starting what we need to do inside of SketchUp, we want to be in a 2D environment. The best way for us to do that inside SketchUp for Schools is come over here to what's called the Scenes menu. Look where my mouse is at, on the far right-hand side. Come over to the Scenes menu, and we click on that, and we see several scenes, okay? What we want is the middle one. And that just is our top down, is as if we're standing straight up above a piece of paper and looking straight down. That's our top view. That's what we want to work with. Now that leaves us with nothing but our y-axis and our x-axis. At this point, I would strongly recommend that you pause the video and you go through each of these first steps. Go to Google, go to the 9 dots, scroll down, find Google SketchUp, open it, and then get yourself into a new template and make it the top view. And when we're done with that, we'll just click this to close that little menu. And you should have a screen like that. So if you'd like to pause at this point and go get those steps down, that would be a great first step. Okay, hopefully you've paused and done that, and you've got Google SketchUp now open. To make this easy for next time around, it's very, very important that we create a bookmark. So I think we all know how to make bookmarks. Let's go up to the star on our URL bar. Let's go ahead and create a bookmark. And I would strongly suggest you just want that on your bookmarks bar. You want that to show up right in this area when you log into your Chromebook from now on. So bookmarks bar, let's go ahead and hit done. I don't see it. Where did it go? Well, I've got a lot of things on my bookmarks bar. So what I can do is come over to the right, and if you see those double arrows, click on them. I can just find, here is my Google SketchUp for Schools. I'm going to just take my mouse, hold my mouse button down, drag it up. I'm going to get it up here right next to something that I use a lot of. Okay. And now I've got Google SketchUp for Schools on my bookmarks bar. Now we're ready to go. Okay, so we have that for future, and we're ready to go with that. A big tip I can give you when you're working with Google SketchUp is get used to using the right mouse button. Now, I've been asking you to get a mouse. You might be able to get by with your touchpad on your Chromebook, but it's going to create some challenges. You should really have a 3-button mouse to start working with SketchUp. A left click, a right click like you normally have, and then there should be a middle mouse button. A middle mouse button. If you have that little mouse button, that's a clicker and a roller. We'll use that for a lot of things that we do. One other mouse tip I want to give you, if you hit right click, you're typically going to get another menu that pops up. So right click tends to be a very helpful tool as we're going along. Okay. I'm just going to click elsewhere and that turns it off. But a right click turns on a menu that I can do a number of things that we'll learn about as we go forward. If I just click elsewhere, it's gone. All right, so we've got a 2D scene made up. We have learned a little bit about a mouse and the kind of mouse that you should have. Now, we want to work on beginning to draw things. Drawing in SketchUp can be easy once you learn it. However, we need to learn some of the techniques. So there are a number of tools over here. We have the pointer or selector. We have an eraser. And they're all, if you hover over them, that it shows you what they are. And if there's an arrow, that usually means there's more that pops out. There is paint, and then there's a paint dropper. Okay. If a window like this pops up, you can just close that. Go down to the pencil. Notice there's an arrow next to it again. We can make straight lines, or we can make freehand lines. Okay. We have the panel that has arcs. There is a, what do they call this one? It is a unlocked plane. It is a 2-point arc, a 3-point arc, and a pi arc. Okay. Click on that again to close it. We have another one here that is called the rectangle tool. Open that up. I can make a rectangle. I can make a rotated rectangle. I can make circles, polygons, or I can even add text or letters to my drawing. We also have something called the push-pull menu. We probably won't use anything for push-pull. You may have used that in design and modeling, but we'll learn about that just a little bit. Follow me. I don't know that we'll use that a whole lot. This one we will use. It's called the offset tool. If I click on that, that's going to show up. So whatever tool I have working last, that's the one that's going to show up. I'm just clicking on offset because I'll use that more often than not. The next one, we have outer shells, we've got the unions of parts, subtracting, trimming, intersecting, and split. We may not use that a whole lot. This one we will use an awful lot. That's our move tool, that's our rotate tool, and that's our scaling tool. We'll use the move tool quite a bit as we work together. Measuring tool, the measuring tape. We've used some measuring tapes in class already. You'll get to use that quite a bit. But inside of there is a measuring tape. There's a dimensioning tool. There's a text for adding notes tool. There is a section plane we probably won't use. There's a protractor, and then there's also 4 different axes. We probably won't use that as much as just the measuring tape. And we could do a walkthrough, and then there's also an orbit tool. So those are examples of several tools. Now, a couple tips on sketching the right way is simply to pick a tool. Let's go ahead and pick the line tool to start with. And when I draw something, I click, let go of my mouse, and then I drag a line. And I click again, and I've got a line. Where my beginning point is, I drag and I click again. I can come down, click again, and I can just create a shape, and I'll close my shape. And when I'm done, I can go back to the select tool, turns that tool off. So I've made a simple shape. I can also make a rectangle. Click to start a corner, and then just drag that out. I'm letting go of my click button once I do that, okay? All right, so I've made some oddball shapes. I've made some lines. I've made a rectangle. You can move things around. We want to use the move tool. So I can just put my cursor on the face and I can drag that around. It doesn't really click to anything. It drops wherever you place it. However, something that's very helpful, if you go to an end point and I drag that end point, it clicks to another end point. Okay? And I might say, well, that's kind of a strange shape. We might click this endpoint again here. Oh, we want to get back to our move tool here. And we've got to grab that endpoint, and we'll drag that up. If we want those lines to line up, I can take my move tool, select the line, and we can drag that around. Find the center point, edge. We can move things around a little bit, okay? We can move the whole object. Okay, so we can experiment a little bit with that. We can try and draw some other shapes as well. Might draw a circle. I'm going to put a point right at the origin, and I just move my mouse out. That gives me a circle. Okay, I can click on my right click, and if I don't like that, I can erase it. I can click on this, right click, and I can erase that. Okay, so I'm just using my right click mouse button to do a number of these things. Okay. If you find you've got a bunch of stuff that you really don't like, here's an undo button. That can be one of our best friends inside of Google SketchUp. Undo. I'm going to get back just to where I had that rectangle. So I don't like all this other stuff. I've kind of made a mess out of my drawing. Okay. And I'll just click here. And we can move things around a little bit if we need to. Maybe we want to move a line. Okay. Grab the midpoint, and I can move that line down. If I push that, it's going to skew my image, but it lets me move just a line. Okay? What happens if I want to take and move this shape and connect it to this one? I might find, again, when I get the midpoint, I can click, and I can drag that till it touches the other edge. And sometimes we call that stickiness inside of SketchUp. We want this part to stick to that. And if we want to then use our eraser to get rid of the extra line, now it looks like one big continuous shape. All right, so that gives us a little bit of idea of what to start with. One perhaps last image thing we'll do here, if we want to select something, I've got my select tool here. I can either click on something, or if I want to just drag across it, it selects everything inside. I'm going to use Mr. Right mouse button again. and I might want to group that, okay? Make a group. And what that does is it makes that into a group so that other things can't stick to it. And where that's important is if we want to make another rectangle inside of that, perhaps, let's go back here and let's make another rectangle. And I can make a rectangle, okay, and that doesn't stick to anything inside. I can just take that and I can move that guy around. Sure I can. I want to get the right part here. Talked a little about stickiness. Notice how these are two separate items. This thing is not stuck to the other. So I can drop that over here, get my select tool. Now let's go grab this guy and move it around. Maybe we want to put that inside or make it connected to that. Notice how it doesn't stick to that. Oops, get our move tool. We can drag that and it doesn't stick to anything. I can place that wherever I'd like. If I want to have that overlap a little bit, turn that drawing tool off. Let's grab Mr. Eraser. I can zoom in by using my middle mouse button, erase that line. It took that whole group out of there. So part of this is I just want you to experiment a little bit with this and practice moving things around and get a little bit familiar with that. A couple other things before we end our video here. If you should do some things different with your mouse, perhaps there are 3 key mouse movements that I'd really like you to get used to, and it might even be worth taking a note in your notebook. I want to get closer to something that's called zoom. Take my middle mouse button, I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to roll that down. Notice it zooms wherever my mouse is at. If I want to zoom on the center of this square, notice how it zooms at the very center of that square. If I want to get the point of this, it's going to zoom on that point. Okay? That's zooming in. It's like taking a telescope or magnifying glass. The next one we're going to use is called the pan button. If I want to just drag this around my screen, I hold the shift button down on my keyboard, hold the middle mouse button down, and I can just drag this image around on my screen, or I can drag my screen. Okay, it's really not doing anything other than moving it around on my computer screen. That's called pan. The last thing, if we hold the scroll button down without the shift button, hold it down, and I am rotating this piece. Notice how it's coming on edge. Go back. If I let go and I go again, it's rotating that around. Okay. What happens if I get all out of proportion? I want to get back to the 2D view. Simply jump over here to the scenes view, and we want to find the top view. Takes us back to that top view of things. Okay, go ahead and we'll close that window. So we've learned zoom, pan, and orbit. Google SketchUp works much like our Windows programs or our Google programs. If I do something and I realize I don't like that, draw a rectangle, and I'm done. I can hit the undo button here, or a Control Z on my keyboard does the same thing as the undo button. Okay, I can redo something if I realize I made a mistake. So that should give you a little bit of a heads up on how Google SketchUp for Schools works. I would like you to take some time now and open up Google SketchUp and just do some practice drawing within that before we start making our first floor plan. Have some fun with Google SketchUp. Make sure you have made a bookmark as well, because you're going to close this and you'll want to come back to it at a later point. Thanks for watching.